It's 9:18 right on the dot. A new report shows Grand Rapids is among the top cities where Gen Z is stepping into homeownership. This report from Lending Tree reveals Grand Rapids has the largest share of mortgage requests from Gen Zers. Here, Gen Zers account for 31.45% of mortgage requests.
Wow.
Matt Schulz is the chief credit analyst at Lending Tree. He's here to help break down this report. Thank you so much for being with us. Let's start with the big picture. Why is Grand Rapids kind of leading the nation in mortgage requests among Gen Zers? I mean, is there really a huge appeal for that age group right now?
Well, really, I think a big part of what it's about is just affordability. And Grand Rapids, in terms of housing costs compared to a lot of the other bigger cities around America, is a relative bargain. And in so many of the big cities around the country, Gen Zers, it's really just kind of a pipe dream to own a home in some of those places. So more affordable places like Grand Rapids become really, really appealing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we're talking about the top 5 on this report. If we can pull up a graphic, we've got it right here. Grand Rapids is 1, Salt Lake City is number 2. Over in Wisconsin, Milwaukee's number 3, Minneapolis, followed by Cincinnati, kind of round out your top 5. So what do these cities have in common that might explain the popularity here? Or is it really that affordability aspect that you've been describing?
It's primarily about affordability, but they're also cities that are certainly growing and are becoming more appealing to that younger population that maybe has decided that they're not going to look at the big coastal cities and maybe focus on affordability a little bit more, especially if you're somebody who is really interested in becoming a homeowner as opposed to a renter.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you kind of do see that shift between renters and home buyers, and it's very interesting, especially here in West Michigan. You know, we have so many options. You know, we've got the big city life, but we also have the waters right next door. So you've got the big lake about 25 minutes away too.
Yeah, I feel like there has to be some type of lifestyle aspect that kind of goes into that decision making, but with affordability being such an important thing for so many people that are making decisions and where they want to live. Something that still strikes my attention is those cities. I mean, they're still not exactly very cheap necessarily. So how does that affordability aspect kind of get determined by some of these people that are looking for mortgages and looking to buy homes?
Yeah, it really is an individual thing depending on how much you make and how much savings you have and that sort of thing. So, and we all know that affordability isn't the only thing that goes into it. It's where jobs are available, it's where your family might live, or it's just a place where you've always wanted to live. And in a place like Grand Rapids, I'm guessing that being known as Beer City probably isn't hurting y'all too much.
Yeah, no, I would imagine that as well. Of course, there's a robust tech market here as well.
Yeah.
Lots of different companies headquartered right downtown in GR. You know, on the flip side, some of the major cities like, you know, San Francisco, San Jose, even New York City are kind of at the bottom of this top 50. We actually have the bottom 5, if we could pull that up too. I believe it was New York at 46, LA at 47, Las Vegas at 48, San Jose 49, and San Francisco at 50. So they had the lowest share of Gen Z mortgage activity. Is that strictly a pricing issue, or are there some other factors at play in some of those larger metro areas that we all know?
Again, it really does a lot of the time get down to affordability, because when you compare the average mortgage request that we had at Lending Tree in some of the more affordable cities to the down payments that were being made in some of the bigger cities, there's really not all that much difference, or as much difference as you might expect. So everybody today, with the cost of seemingly everything rising pretty consistently, is just looking for the best combination of affordability and a good place to live and employment opportunities, and places like Grand Rapids and Boise and Cincinnati are looking much more appealing to a lot of people than the LAs and New Yorks and San Franciscos. So it's certainly an interesting time.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, when you're naming some of these cities, it's very interesting to see kind of that compare and contrast, especially with the big cities versus, you know, a mid-sized city like Grand Rapids, you know, just kind of seeing where the importance factor lies for some of those Gen Z home buyers too.
Definitely. Something else that kind of piqued my interest too about those lists is the top 5 that Gen Zers are going towards, they're gravitating towards. 4 of those were all kind of the eastern side of the country, looking a lot at the Midwest too. But the bottom 5, most of those were on the west side of the country. Does the geography of this have really anything to do with that, or is that just a coincidence?
It might, but I think that it's a little more, again, about just the cost of living. And plus the job market is incredibly tough. And we've also seen among young Americans more of a propensity for staying close to home and even living with their parents for a while to save a little bit of money. So perhaps some of those kids from the upper Midwest or the Northeast or that sort of thing who may have dreamed of going out to California in previous years are like, I just can't afford it. I'm going to find something closer to home and enjoy myself there.
I think you make an excellent point, because I know so many people that have either moved out to LA, moved out to San Francisco, or moved to the East Coast over there in New York City. And they're like, I had my fun in the big city, but
time to go home.
It's time to go home, because there are a lot of costs associated with some of those areas that we're describing here. Now, so your report shows that Gen Zers are requesting kind of relatively modest loan amounts and down payments. What does that kind of tell you about their approach to home buying in the Grand Rapids area, or maybe some of the top 5 areas that you guys have surveyed here?
Well, it shouldn't be any surprise that Gen Z's mortgage requests are a little bit lower than you might expect from some others, in part just because they're just getting started. Because the oldest Gen Zer, I believe, is about 28. And so they're just getting started in their career. They certainly haven't hit their peak earnings years. They haven't had necessarily as much time to build up good credit. So the interest rate that they may get on that mortgage may not be as good as what their parents or their aunts and uncles might get. So that kind of puts a little bit of a ceiling on what they're going to be able to afford and ask for. But it's also certainly a sign that the American dream of home ownership is still alive and well in Gen Z.
Yeah, you mentioned maybe not having the best credit there for a lot of Gen Zers that are going in trying to buy homes. Do you have any advice for Gen Zers that are trying to get into the housing market that maybe want to boost their credit before they're looking for that next mortgage?
My biggest piece of advice when it comes to credit is to get started early. If you have a parent or a trusted loved one who has really good credit, becoming what's called an authorized user on somebody's credit card, where you're basically a secondary account holder, that can be a really good idea, because what happens is that the positive history from mom or dad's credit card that you are made an account holder on transfers over to you in full. So you can end up, it can be a real jump start for your credit. We did one for my 18-year-old son, and it dramatically improved his credit. And so that's certainly a good move that you can start with if you have that available to you.
Let's talk about Gen Z's buying patterns. How could that influence the housing market long term, especially in cities like Grand Rapids that are seeing this surge in demand from younger buyers?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, we've seen Gen Z be fairly cautious and have some different tendencies than their older counterparts, and we've also seen them struggle a fair amount. We just did a survey at LendingTree talking about how many young Americans are now using things like buy now, pay later loans to buy groceries and stuff like that. So there's no question that there is some struggle there. But we've also seen, for the most part, that age group kind of does the right thing when they have the opportunity. They've looked at They've looked at high yield savings accounts and things like that. So I think generally what we've seen from them bodes pretty well for the future.
Definitely interesting. Do you expect Grand Rapids to remain kind of a top destination for Gen Z homebuyers as prices rise?
Yeah, I would think so. Assuming that the population growth and the overall growth there doesn't catch fire and send those housing costs through the roof and making them a little less affordable, I think that Grand Rapids is going to be appealing for Gen Z home buyers for quite some time.
All right, so if a Gen Z viewer is watching right now, they're considering buying a home, maybe even here in Grand Rapids, which we would not be mad about right here. We always love to welcome more people over here to West Michigan. What is one piece of advice you give them before jumping into the market?
Absolutely, positively shop around and compare mortgage interest rates before you apply, because different lenders have different would have different terms and would have different rates and different offers for you. So don't just accept the first offer that you're given or the first place that your realtor recommends, because if you don't shop around, it can end up costing you real money.
Yeah. Any last words about this report? I mean, this is extremely interesting, especially hearing that we're at the top of the list here for those Gen Z home buyers. It feels like promising news for the market as a whole here. So any last thoughts on Grand Rapids as it relates to this report?
No, I think that this report speaks really well for Grand Rapids and any place that has the combination of good things that y'all have and affordable housing is going to do all right in the near future.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time this morning. And of course, you can find that report on Lending Tree's website. Thank you so much.
Thank you.